2007 was the year that French-based developer Ubisoft dropped the first game in their flagship series, Assassin's Creed. Fast forward over 10 years later, I'm talking about it on the internet for strangers because none of my friends want to discuss such an old title with me. Of course I'm kidding. I don't really have any friends. But I do have an interesting relationship with the Assassin's Creed series. There was a period in time where I would have considered these games amongst my favorites, playing all of them to Black Flag. But after playing that game, I didn't feel a desire to play anymore. It was due to no fault of Black Flag. The game's amazing. The urge just left me. I would even go as far as saying that Black Flag was my favorite out of all the Assassin's Creed games, but the fact remains it was the last one I've played. 5 years have gone by and I haven't touched an Assassin's Creed game, but an urge has come over me where I want to go back and look at this series, see if there was a reason I used to consider it amongst my favorites. With that, that's all this review is really going to be. It's going to be my personal thoughts. I'm Booman, and this is Booman's Reviews, after all. I'm going to give you my thoughts on the story, graphics, gameplay, give you some pros, some cons, and then I'm going to get the fuck out of here. So let's go ahead and get into it.
With your help, I will. Where would you have me begin my search?
What's this? You're actually asking for my assistance instead of demanding it. I'm impressed.
Be out with it.
As you wish.
Assassin's Creed jumps back and forth between two main characters, modern day's Desmond Miles and 1191's assassin Altair in the middle of the Third Crusade. The way this is done is through genetic memory. Desmond Miles is kidnapped by a shady organization that goes by the name of Abstergo Industries. They're looking for something. The only way for them to find what they're looking for is by accessing Desmond's genetic memories. They put him in a machine called the Animus, which gives them the ability to fill the shoes of his ancestor, Altair. The player spends the majority of their time as Altair, and even though Altair's story does have an immense impact on the future, it can mostly be taken by itself. When you first meet him, he's a young, arrogant, high-ranking assassin that does things by his own rules despite being a part of the Brotherhood. Because of his arrogance, he makes choices violating the same creed that he swore to uphold. This will cost him his rank, weapons, and respect. The rest of the game is you trying to gain all those things back, and you learning the ways of the Assassin's Creed. The story ends up being a 70-30 split between modern day and the past. Past being 70%, modern day being 30%, but both focus heavily on personal growth and accepting responsibility. By the end, both characters will have gone through these arcs. Now, I can't say this is the most complex narrative, but I can say it is inherently compelling. By the end of the game, Desmond and Altair are two completely separate characters than when you first meet them. There are also a lot of revelations that both characters come to in this game, but it doesn't compare to the amount of questions that will be posed. That obviously spawned into a huge multi-million-dollar franchise, but that is not exactly what we're talking about here. With that, I would like to point out that this is a much more linear game than one would expect, especially if you've only played later games in the franchise, but in my opinion, it only benefits from this. I say that because having the story play out more straightforward leaves more room for the overall experience to do what it does best, and that is the fantasy of being an assassin. I received 9 targets. I'm told that if I kill those 9 targets, I will regain my honor and become a better assassin for it. That's all I really need to know, and the game delivers. Overall, the story holds up. It's not exactly Amadeus, but it doesn't need to be. I'm here for a quick action adventure, and that's what you're getting. When you first start playing as Altair, he has all of his equipment, all of his abilities, and max health. You get to play this for roughly 30 minutes, and then you have everything taken away from you. I'm not sure how they do this with his tackle ability and climbing abilities. They must hit him over the head to take away his motor functions. Nevertheless, there's work to be done. The leader of the Brotherhood gives you 9 targets to kill, and you're off. The gameplay loop begins. The loop basically boils down to arriving at one of 3 historical cities and visiting the local Assassin's Bureau. There, the residing high-ranking assassin will give you information on your current target. At every city, there's 3 districts. There's the poor, middle, and rich district. Not all of them are available to you until you navigate the entire game. This also includes the map. It's not filled in at all until you start climbing the local viewpoints and overlooking the city. It's at this point you'll see the missions that the high-ranking assassin suggested. Once you complete them all, you'll be able to go back and get information on actually executing the target. This is really the bulk of what you'll be doing throughout the game. Luckily, if you play the Director's Edition of the game, which you should, it's not nearly as tedious as it sounds. This is because there's a diverse list of missions for the player opposed to the standard edition. The base game had roughly 5 types of missions for the player, while the Director's Edition has closer to 10. It really helps the game feel a lot less tedious by having these diverse missions, but the problem is this edition is only available on PC, so console players would be missing out.
My men do not fear death, Robert. They welcome it.
What you actually end up doing on these missions is pickpocketing, tailing leads, killing low-grade targets, vandalism, intimidating non-believers, and you even get to help this guy out of a particular bind he found himself in.
I spent too much time in the harbor brothel last night.
Hey. We've all been there, man. We've all been there. From there, all that's really left to do is explore Kingdom, the traveling section of the map between the cities, kill Templars, collect flags, and finish the remaining viewpoints. And once you finish with all of that, you can ignore the poor, abuse the mentally ill, or save those that made the fatal mistake of believing the wrong god or being born a woman almost 1,000 years ago. Or not. And that pretty much covers the overall scheme of what you do in the game. There's not really too much.
Altair, it seems my students do not fully understand what it is to wield the blade. Perhaps you could show them what...
No. The answer is no. Jesus. To accomplish all these tasks, the player needs to master 3 major mechanics. That's platforming, stealth, and combat. The platforming's okay, not great, and in a lot of ways it didn't age well. You'll be climbing along and Altair just decides life isn't worth living anymore. Just takes the plunge. When it's working, it's not half bad. Stealth is a little bit of a mixed bag. While I can say it's the most interesting playstyle, I can't say it's the easiest. It's much easier to just go up to your selected target, stab them, and run off. The stealth in the game runs off what they call a social system. An indicator will appear in the left-hand corner of the screen showing how likely it is for the player to be detected. Once the player is detected, the indicator will change red and they must choose to evade or kill everyone that's pursuing them. If you choose to run, the indicator will blink yellow and you can hide. There are a large variety of places for you to hide, from haystacks to benches. Once you enter the hiding spot, the indicator turns blue and enters a cooldown. This blinks for a couple of seconds and then turns green. After that, it's like nothing happened. That leaves the combat, and the game gives you a decent amount of toys to play with. Having a short blade and throwing knives are super fun to play around with. But really, the key to victory is holding your parry stance and waiting to kill. Who taught me that again? Oh my god, get the hell away from me!
Altair!
Now, if you haven't played these games before, you might be thinking, oh my god, he hasn't talked about the modern day gameplay yet. It must be the best part. I'm sorry. It's not. No, all you really do in the modern day segments is walk around and find exposition or get exposition told to you. It's needed exposition, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel like it was throwing the pace off. That's it for the gameplay, but how's the whole package? How's the tone? How's the presentation?
Welcome, welcome. Thank you all for joining me this evening. Please eat, drink, enjoy all the pleasures I have.
Graphically, the game still looks really good. Environments are wide and the architecture is detailed. Having varied environmental effects in each city adds a nice style to each location, making the world feel a lot bigger. It's almost like you're really traveling a large distance to get to each of these cities. The only gripe I have about the environments is some of the buildings look a little bit too perfect. They'll sit at perfect 90-degree angles, and some of the plant life in the world just doesn't move. It sucks a little bit of the life that Ubisoft was able to put into this world, but overall it's just a gripe. It still looks amazing. I would like to take a moment to discuss how the cutscenes are handled in this game. All of them are in-engine, but the unique part is you get to pick between 2 perspectives while watching them. The cutscene will have you control Altair normally until an intentional visual glitch appears on screen. Once you see the glitch, pressing any button will put you in the perspective of a traditional cutscene. It's a very interesting design choice, and I wish more games implemented it. From there we have character models, and for the most part, they look really good. There are some clipping issues and animation glitches that you would expect from an older game like this, but it still looks great. Something worth mentioning though is that characters' faces and their facial animations look a little bit odd. It seems like they're suffering from stroke face as far as I can tell. I'm sure it was impressive for the time, but it just looks weird to me. Musically, I have no complaints though. The game's score is fantastic. Some of the tracks here set the tone and add life to the world around you. It makes the city streets of the Holy Land feel just that more alive. Whether you're climbing towers or running from guards, it's only amplified by the music here. I can't sing the same praises for the voice acting, unfortunately. Most of the performances are decent, but some of it fluctuates from wooden
From the flesh of an innocent. I know.
to hammy and really ridiculous.
Perhaps. Or perhaps they do not know you because you are not a man of God, but an assassin! Never!
It's not anything that brings the game down too much, and there's a lot of really good performances here too. I just wanted to bring it up because you're gonna notice.
And did you see the way that people cheered? The way they feared me?
And that's all there really is to say about Assassin's Creed. The only question that remains is, do I recommend playing it in 2022? Of course I recommend playing it. It's Assassin's Creed. While this series has gotten debatably bloated over the years, this game still holds the test of time to me. It's still great to go back and see how everything started off. Sure, there are some annoyances when it comes to the mechanics in the game, but I wouldn't want Ubisoft to take anything out. This game is more than the sum of its parts. I could sit here and tell you the little nitpicks I have with each mechanic that I don't like, but the fact is, when everything comes together, it's just great. It's hard to be annoyed by stiff animations when I'm about to kill the man I've been educating myself about for the better part of an hour. And I don't really care about the simple combat. All I really care about is having another philosophical conversation with my target while he bleeds out on the floor, and getting back to my assassin daddy so he can give me a new toy to play with. It holds up. Some games age like wine and others like milk, but Assassin's Creed is about what you remember, and that ain't a bad thing.